New road. Yeah, that's the very first thing it'll do is play commercials, so. Yeah, has been there a few seconds out of it, there.
It's a good idea. There's coffee upstairs now.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking one of these here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Three minutes.
I'm just, no, I was just.
So we normally have it ready, but ours is not here.
No, nobody's, it's not even time for class. No hurry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Down here. Little issues.
Who's actually the lady away? Ow.
I can see that way, I can see this one. But then.
I didn't notice it, the library.
Need more?
No, it's great. I'm still.
Oh, volume or user?
They get your recording set up.
Got it all, right, all set up. That's good to that. Hopefully we have no commercials at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, I know. These YouTube ads are really silly. How many fat filter? That's like pink salt, weight loss risk.
Love, love that you want. I hope you want to get the first.
But
I'm Lauren.
it's
I want to. She takes care of it.
it's something to fix for sure. This is a micro USB or USB-C, so we just need a long USB-C cable and the where we want. Great, that would be nice. Now. Okay. Wait for the.
I was gonna give people with the time. We got this is the shortest video.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought.
You gotta know. You just go.
Oh, wait, you know what?
What?
But yeah, I think some.
You guys need to to them.
Yeah, I know.
You guys
Oh, wait. Those smart.
People we knew were gonna be out. So it's Constantine creeds and churches. That sounds pretty
Oh,
cool.
wait, what? Who does? That's not what I was thinking.
Now. There we go.
She started sitting there where you guys like. Like take forever. We didn't make it, but we wanted to see. Sorry, here. So we just take vlogs somewhere else. It's mostly outdoors, even like native, that was great in porch. Just out there, that's all we'll do. So the student came up with strengths. So we will
They look.
yeah. So. Like, probably here. We got a trip to Mexico. Still on purpose to recruit a meeting. And they had classes.
Right.
So we started the birthday thing. She was actually much better flyer than me. That's good. It was what the meetings are. I don't think they was losing. She started. Yeah, her two is the worst. After surgery. Better. That's a lot of stuff. It was like 7 is. See, so. One and both of these services in the center for places that are. Oh, that's good. Very good, it's another. She is almost 8 months. I believe. Sure, she said, 2 years now.
Well, it's a good age.
Yeah.
And everybody waiting on you.
She's having,
You have your own household service.
she's having serious, man.
We're gonna wait a few more minutes for the crowd to show up.
Are you teaching?
I'm facilitating.
Oh, okay.
Video will teach. I'm gonna teach you the discussion.
Okay, good. Well, that's.
We have the third member of the Chihuahua family.
Hello.
Hello.
Amber, you wanna be back here with us? Sure. So then we do all the talking. Well, last week. You were. But I don't.
Did you see the new baby Chihuahua?
No, I didn't touch the links, but it's a nice.
Oh, hi.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Well, just in. Hurry.
Oh, you get it.
We're gonna wait just a few more minutes. Because I know that like 40 people are gonna show
Well.
up. Or
Library crowds are doing a thing, so.
I think this is actually, it's too bad because it's one of the most interesting videos of the series. It really talks about the history of development.
Did anybody, ask them if they want to join us? If they want to join us? Okay, well, I'm gonna.
Come on, let's go learn. I know. Inside of these good facilities. It's like chill, but I know we got to move.
He does.
Say,
I'm gonna sit right there. Somehow, I've never been raised with.
it's all been out right there since That's small. Okay, let's see. 2 minutes.
That's everything. Sorry. We'll see.
I'll start with a song.
Okay. Are we gonna sing it or? I.
Is it this little action?
So,
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, now it's.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going Ladies. Thank you. Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Hi, how are you?
It's actually. Nice.
What was it?
They're too small.
We have to above.
We gotta go over the free.
Huh?
Sad that he's been over the free road. This time we get dog, it's not enough, he's gonna be.
No shit.
You don't think you're getting the one anymore? We will see. I know I was four or something, she has. So we kind of.
And you go that?
And then you have another friend who has a bigger boat, we, they're on. So.
Having never known any time in my life, I said, no, I wasn't gonna see it again. That I didn't have it on.
Oh my goodness. So you're an adult person. So you have no. No, still, I was on that side. For 26 years, I had.
All right.
All the rest of the bus. Nice.
No, I'm gonna come sit over there and watch the video with you guys. Okay, good morning. Father Anthony is very busy, as you can imagine, trying to take care of everything while Kathy is out. So it's me. Today we're the next episode in the series that we've been following is about Constantine. And today what we're going to watch is a 22-minute video that talks about the history and influence of Constantine on the church once he kind of legislated it in 313, I believe it was. And we're going to see the changes in church styles and understand why they changed. The early church went from being in people's homes, or, well, usually people's homes, some other kind of a space, but nothing as grand as a basilica, for sure. So Constantine really introduced that concept. And so today that's what this video is about. Then we'll have some discussion questions afterwards. I hope there's no commercials, sorry.
Summer is my favorite time of year. As the days grow long and the temperatures rise, it's the perfect opportunity to refresh your home with.
Hello and welcome back to our little course on church architecture and spirituality. This time we're going to be looking at the Emperor Constantine, his effect on church architecture, and how this had an impact on the beliefs, the creeds of Christianity. Now, for the last 2 weeks, we've been looking at the evolution of spaces that Christians met in the earliest years. Christianity was anew, it was a small group, it was outlawed by the Roman Empire, so it's hardly surprising that the earliest Christian churches were either small public meeting rooms like this one, or domestic spaces that had been modified to make a bigger dining room for meetings, perhaps an extra room or two given over to a baptistry or a library or a storage room for charitable gifts. Now, because those spaces were primarily domestic spaces, we had to understand what Roman and Greek domestic spaces looked like. But once Christianity became an official religion of the Roman Empire, those domestic spaces weren't sufficient. Something grander, something more official was needed. So now we've learned something about Greek and Roman houses, we need to look at the official buildings of the Roman Empire to see how they were adopted for Christian.
Skip the rental counter with Turo. Rent just about any car, just about anywhere.
Use. But before we do that, let's talk for a moment about the person who launched Christianity into its official imperial stage. The Roman Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity in 312, and he believed that the sign of Christ that appeared to him in a dream aided his army in battle. And that battle took place here at the Milvian Bridge in Rome. In 313, the Edict of Milan gave Christianity an official status in the empire. And this is an Italian stamp that commemorates the 1700th anniversary of that edict. Although Constantine wasn't baptized until 25 years later on his deathbed in 337, his embrace of Christianity in 312 had a huge impact on the empire. According to Roman tradition, the emperor was close to a god. He ruled through divine right. And Constantine therefore believed that he was ruling over the earthly Christian empire, just as God ruled over heaven. The combination of state power with supernatural power meant that there was now a unified empire, one church, one state, and both of them under the rule of God's vice-regent on earth, the emperor. Christianity now has this real social and political legitimacy. It was the religion of the people from northern Britain all the way east to Iraq and down south to the southern frontier of Egypt. One of the ways in which Emperor Constantine demonstrated this link between religious and state power was to engage in a huge building program. Now, we don't even know exactly how many of these churches he commissioned, but he was involved in the construction of the most important of them, including the earliest St. Peter's Church in Rome, which you can see here, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, whose ground plan you can see here. Here is a photograph of the center of that round structure that we just saw, the edicule that was built over the Holy Sepulchre itself. Now, these buildings are very different from the adapted domestic spaces that we've looked at so far. They weren't just built to house a commemorative meal or honor a saint or perform a baptism. They were built to demonstrate the power of the emperor and the power of Christianity. And they were symbols of imperial and religious power. And gone are these little inconspicuous entryways in the back streets of the empire. These new buildings went up in public locations, and they were huge. Not only that, they were built not to show the hospitality of the house owner who was lending their space to Christian meetings. They were built to purposefully integrate the atmosphere, the formality of the imperial court into liturgy and architecture. That's why they transformed not only buildings, but they also transformed the beliefs and the practices of Christianity itself.
You know what's smart? Truffle butter filet mignon without lifting a finger. Eat smart with Factor.
I gotta record this. I gotta put it down somewhere because last night I blacked out for 12 hours. And this wasn't a normal black.
Constantine chose the locations of these churches very carefully. These are the basilicas that Constantine was responsible for in Rome. Rome was over 500 years old when Constantine began this church building program, and the best places for building were therefore outside the overbuilt city centres. Here you can see a map of very early Rome. That black square there is the walled city of Rome in 753 BC. It was about to expand well beyond those borders in the years to come. Here's a map of the locations of Constantine's basilicas in Rome, and you can see that they're not in the small walled area that we just saw. They're located in the outer boroughs, And if you trace a line between them like this, what you can see is that it forms a cross that's centered on the Colosseum. He also chose sites that were associated with earlier Christian bishops or places that were owned by the state. Here is the piazza of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. It was started in 313 and it was designed to adjoin the Laterani Palace, a palace that's fit for the Bishop of Rome. A very touching feature of this church, here it's its front, obviously done up in the Renaissance. It came into Constantine's possession through his wife, and so it was sometimes known as the House of Fauste, his wife, Domus Fauste. It was a basilica in form. It might have been adapted from an earlier basilica on the site, a secular basilica, outlined in brown here. Here you can see that this isn't a house that's been basilicified, but a basilica that is being Christianized. He dedicated this building to Christ the Saviour, evoking his delivery in battle. He was also currying favour with the most influential Christian figure in Rome, the bishop. This is the formal entrance to the basilica. It says the Holy Lateran Church, the church, the mother and head church of the city of Rome and the world. Not a modest inscription, as we can see.
Creating an inviting, inspiring room for your child is easy at Living Spaces, where our kids and teens collections offer versatility, durability.
And here we can see the official cathedra in that church, of the Bishop of Rome, in the apse. It's his throne. The basilica shows how then this state power could be combined with the social power of the clergy. And here you can clearly see the basilica form with this characteristic flat roof. Here is Santa Maria Maggiore with its Baroque frontage, the oldest basilica dedicated to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Here's the interior, the nave leading up to the apse. You can see those Doric columns there on the side, this very strong string course here that's separating the nave from the clerestory up above. This very strong horizontal line here that's pulling your eye towards the apse. Here you can see again the flat roof on the right, Jesus crowning Mary as Queen of Heaven. Here's St. Paul outside the walls, and as I've said, one of the characteristics of these basilicas is their longitudinal axis. Here you can very clearly see it once again, the flat roof, the close together columns pulling your eye towards the front of the church, the great apse there, and with the strong string course that's separating the nave from the clerestory above. Here in the apse we can see Christ in glory with St. Paul on his right and St. Peter on his left. There's a very strong string course, yes, separating the lower arches from the upper clerestory, leading the eye towards the apse rather than up towards the roof. Here is a reconstruction of St. Peter's Basilica. As you can see, it's a basilica in form up here, but it's preceded by a gatehouse with three characteristic doors and a little atrium here before you get to the narthex and the basilica itself. Here's a couple of cross sections of a double-aisled basilica with two columns, two sets of columns separating the nave from the side aisles. Here's San Giovanni in Laterano with its double columns as well. And here's a floor plan of old St. Peter's Basilica outlined in black there, and the dotted line around it is the outline of the current basilica, and both of them are centered there on St. Peter's tomb.
Want restaurant quality meals that actually support your wellness goals? Factor's got you covered.
Summer is my favorite time of year. As the days grow long and the temperatures rise, it's the perfect opportunity to refresh your home.
Finally, here we can see the 7 pilgrimage churches of Rome. Santa Maria Maggiore is just to the left, and down at the bottom there you've got the current St. Peter's Basilica, and above that San Giovanni in Laterano. Now, Constantine also threw himself into building memorial churches over the sites where Jesus was crucified and buried. This was no simple coincidence. It was no sentimental, pious gesture. It was done to advance very specific ideas about Christianity. Now, in Constantine's day, the site of Jesus' tomb was dedicated to a temple to Aphrodite, here in green, marked as the Temple of Venus. The temple might actually have been constructed by the Romans to suppress Christians making pilgrimages to the site of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Now, Constantine had that temple demolished. And on demolition, a cave was revealed that was presumed to be the site of Jesus' tomb. This is not it. These are other caves cut into the rock in Jerusalem. Now, this cave was excavated into a sort of cone-shaped pile, and a circle of columns was erected around it. And then a huge monumental church of the Holy Sepulchre was built to adjoin it. So here's the basilica, here's an atrium, and here is the circle of columns around the edicule, the place of the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. Now, Christianity then has triumphed over the older Roman religion. There was another version of this story, incidentally, and it says that Constantine's mother was the main actor here. She learned that the remains of Jesus' cross were under the Aphrodite temple, and when they dug it up, they discovered 3 crosses, but only one of them performed a miracle, and the church was erected over that site. But in both cases, both stories, you can see that imperial power was necessary to uncover the true meaning of the sacred spaces that were going to be dedicated to Christianity. But something else is going on here too. Building a very elaborate church on the spot on which the resurrection of Christ took place physically supported one particular side in a long-running theological, doctrinal, spiritual argument within Christianity. Was the resurrection a miraculous physical resurrection of the flesh? Or was it just a case of the survival of a very special and powerful soul, a sort of spiritual resurrection? Was the resurrection Jesus to be seen? Was he to be heard? Was he to be touched? Or was he just to be dreamt about, or the subject of visions? Constantine was struggling with the Arians at the time, who believed that Christ was created by God, not co-eternal with God. Big difference. And when Constantine built his churches where he did, he came very firmly down on the side of the Nicene Creed that was formulated in 352 after Constantine's death, but it was being argued over during Constantine's life.
Skip the rental counter with Turo. Rent just about any car, just about anywhere.
This martyrium over the sepulchre commemorated the actual physical site of Jesus's resurrection. It's saying it happened here. Here's the site where divinity broke through and touched our human senses. Now, of course, this means that Christian denominations who subscribe to the importance of this doctrine are often in dispute about who is allowed to occupy it or clean it even at certain times. Here is that physical site of Jesus' resurrection. And here you can see this ledge with a ladder and the window. They all belong to the Armenian Christians, but due to a decree of Sultan Osman III in 1757 that said nothing needs to change now, it's all set in stone, you can't barge over another denomination's area here, everything is going to stay exactly as it was in 1757, and that means that this ladder has never been moved from its place there since that time. I think it might have been moved once or twice for a day or two, but that's about it. Now, Constantine's mother, Helena, on a pilgrimage later in life, had a church built over the site of Jesus' birth in Bethlehem, and another one on the Mount of Olives where Jesus ascended. So Helena gave these buildings a huge amount of wealth from the imperial coffers. They were very highly ornamented with precious metals, with mosaics, with sculptures, and some of those original mosaics have recently been excavated under the floor of this basilica in Bethlehem. And the wall paintings and mosaics on the pillars have survived, in part anyway. And here is an engraving of what that enclosure in Bethlehem might have looked like in 1730. Now, it's not as if the churches who didn't support the Constantinian doctrine used a different sort of architecture. The Arians, they built churches too, and here's a small example at Kitti in Cyprus. It takes this typical Greek form, but the apse is decorated with a golden mosaic in which Saint Mary, significantly Agia Maria, as opposed to the Theotokos, the God-bearer, which the Arians didn't like as a title for the mother of Jesus. She's flanked by these two angels with beautiful peacock wings holding globes and staffs.
You know what's smart? Truffle butter filet mignon without lifting a finger. Eat smart with Factor.
Skip the rental counter with Turo. Rent just about any car, just about anywhere.
Here is the church of Saint Pudenziana in Rome. It was finished about 400 AD. You can see here the courtyard with the west end of it at its rear, and the tympanum over the apse here depicts Christ enthroned as a holy judge surrounded by his devotees. And in the background you can see the Church of the Nativity on the left and Golgotha in the middle on the rock with the cross, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre on the right. And Jesus is wearing robes of an earthly judge. It's still sort of holding on to Jesus' humanity, but it is the background here are those great churches in the Holy Land that Constantine was responsible for. It's a mosaic of the official Christian position of the day. Now, just a quick word on basilicas. As we discovered last week, the churches at this time usually fall into two sorts of plan: a central plan that's expanded in circles or hexagons for pilgrimages, or a rectangular plan that looks like a basilica. And this building type indicated the imperial and religious significance of the building at the same time. Now in Rome, the word basilica just meant any large hall that was used for public assembly. And here are a few examples of these secular basilicas. Here's the Basilica of Pompeii, and here we have the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine in Rome, and here is a floor plan of that particular basilica. Now, as you can see, the basilica could be of various forms because the word just signified its use rather than a specific architectural style, but its connection to the word basileus, or emperor, king, was also clear. The tribunal here was the raised area for the officials. And here is another one at Leptis Magna in Libya. Now, Constantine's great churches were rectangular. They ran through the narthex, the vestibule, the nave, the assembly area, and they culminated in this apse or semicircular area at the end. Here is the exterior of this church in Trier, Constantine's Basilica there, a grand building indeed. And here's Santa Sabina in Rome. You can see the apse here at the end with another smaller apse to its left. And here is the interior of that particular church. The apse was often elevated or covered by a semi-dome here, under which the dignitaries sat. These buildings were really designed to impress. And Constantine used this plan for his Lateran Basilica, many later churches in Rome, in Constantinople. The plan was extremely adaptable. You could add aisles, you could add more apses, you could have a clear story rising above the central nave, with balconies underneath it if you needed them. And you could add transepts that were sticking out from the rear of the apse. Now, the basilica plan then visibly proclaimed the imperial significance of Christianity. They were large, they were lavishly ornamented, they were political architectural propaganda that reflected the splendor of the empire and its divine ruler. But of course, this plan also led the worshipper to have a certain sort of experience entering this space. Your eye is led down there to the long nave, to the altar on the dais in the apse. And the nave with its columns leads you forward here. The bishops or the members of the imperial court could process down towards the apse very grandly. Others would have to walk down slowly with humility, with awe, perhaps even with a degree of fear. It figures this long journey towards God, and this hierarchical arrangement was borrowed from the imperial court. The axis runs from the street through a vestibule into an open-air atrium, a covered plaza, and once inside you'd go up from the narthex through the nave to the sanctuary with its altar, and behind the altar the synthronon, this curved area reserved for the dignitaries, the episcopate. Now, elaborate processions were held at the beginning of the services. The bishop and the emperor met in the porch or the narthex. They entered the church together. They were followed by a deacon carrying the gospel, then the celebrant, other clergy, the emperor's guards, the empress's attendants, and the sanctuary was often enclosed with a balustrade or a colonnade, perhaps sometimes shielded from the common view with veils or curtains. The whole thing was effectively staged in a way that emphasized this interplay between supernatural and socio-political power. The emperor occupied a loge up here on the side, accessible to the sanctuary through a door. And the emperor's loge was often a focal point, actually, that rivaled the sanctuary in the eyes of those who stayed down here in the nave. So were these basilicas just audience halls for the Lord? Were they actually just imperial courts, really, masquerading as heavenly courts? And would the humble miracle worker and saviour recognize them as places that were dedicated to his teachings, to his life? There were certainly a lot of imperial elements integrated into the worship, the procession, the vestments, the ritual, like bowing and kissing of the ring, the use of candles, the accommodation of the bishop on a throne, etc. And the ranks were certainly maintained by the arrangement of these basilicas. So next time, we're going to be looking at what happened after the fall of the Roman Empire, when Charlemagne initiated a new building program to emulate the glories of the past that we've been looking at this time. So until next time, thanks for listening and watching, and cheerio for now.
Cheerio. Say cheerio enough. I feel a little funny up here talking to a small group from the microphone, but they're recording it, so. Have any of you had the opportunity to go visit any of these basilicas and cathedrals in Rome or Italy or those places? Yeah.
Some years ago.
Some years ago. Yeah. If you haven't taken the opportunity to do it, and you can, you should. Don't wait anymore. Go. It's amazing. We had we created the chance to go this last February, and we saw a lot of, I don't know how many, countless cathedrals and basilicas and so on. And it's absolutely amazing. So previous to Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity, the early church meetings took place in homes and public spaces. Have you ever attended church in someone's home? What was that like? If you have not, what are your thoughts on attending a church service in a person's home? What might it have been like for early Christians?
Right.
Any thoughts? Well, I mean, it's just us. So. We need to divide it into.
I was curious, that might have been scary back then since it was alcohol.
It might have been, sure, there was a bit of trepidation involved, yeah. He found out. Absolutely, and therefore the son can be not just legalized, but sanctioned by the government.
Very good time, big game.
Have you ever gone to church in the house?
Was there 30? The other day, I went, oh, there's the church. There was a sign on, so I was, oh, you've been to, I was like, it's a whole church, that's what we're talking about. I thought that was really interesting, that someone has a.
Church and tax shelter. Oh, that's not, we need to start from the church.
That's really interesting. My first thought, the churches. Since I'm not first thought, was somebody's gonna have to clean their house, but. It's not, I didn't have as much stuff as we have now, and so there wouldn't be so much, straighten this up and clean this up and fix this up.
Oh, but I bet they still just as.
Yep.
Wow. And my.
Well, those are like in the house.
Well, last week's, scripture was Mary and Martha. Okay. It's an old one. Martha,
You are correct. Very.
Oh, no, I've been to those like cowboy churches, or those kind of things, and, or churches, they would have you had outside of the park. I had those, but not in a actual building that's someone lives.
How about church, like, just suggested? What about church in a place that is not like it's not a church building?
That would be different.
No church in here. I mean, because that's how they started out, just on the hillside, or they did something, I know somebody's home.
Like this church, I'm sorry, when this church first started, do you remember the original building or the original?
Go to the bank shop up there.
Yeah.
This church right now.
Oh, this is a good figure too.
Yeah, Fisher's open. And next week I have video of the shop. Oh, nice. So you're doing a sweet, that's really great.
Right, our church used to do evening prayer in the trailer. Our seminary in George is gonna have a bi-weekly prayer service on Sunday evenings in the church. Then it would be like, we would be doing the evening, the daily office. And like, a basketball would fly by. But it was a really great experience.
Folks outside.
Oh, yeah, in the middle of like the front benches and somebody blasting some kind of wild music over that way, but they would stop. They turned it down.
I grew up in Nazareth Church, my father was pastor of this church. And it was not unusual for us to hold church in someone's home, Wednesday night, something, never on Sunday.
How was it?
So this is such a strange idea to me.
How was your experience in retrospect?
It was very cozy, it was very nice, it was always a smaller crowd. Maybe a maximum of about 20 people. But it was just nice, it was very cozy, and as a child, all the kids were allowed to be there. It was really nice.
I think we've done, speaking for myself, participated in Bible studies in someone's home, which is not quite church, but
It may have started out that way.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to just bring up the opposite situation that we all experienced in 2020. When we were suddenly not gathered at all, experiencing church from wherever we were, if we were able to participate in Zoom versions of church.
That was the story.
That was kind of the opposite gathering at home. I mean, we were gathering in our homes, but we were by ourselves in our homes, but still trying to connect. And I think it was hard, it worked. Because we're still here and we're thriving. And it could have easily gone the other direction, but. We worked really hard to keep people connected. And I don't need to, I mean, I think many churches
Sure.
did that,
That's a
so.
very, very good point. That was very orthodox.
Right. Exactly.
Constantine commissioned the demolition of the Temple of Venus in Jerusalem in order to build the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, said to be the site of both Christ's crucifixion and the cave where he was buried temporarily. What are your thoughts about these claims? Have you ever visited the site? Do you believe this and other churches built in special Christian locations are more sacred than other spaces?
We've been there.
Have you been there? No, I want to go.
It's nice.
It's amazing, but in a way it's underwhelming. Because you really know that a lot of the hoopla for advertising purposes that the Catholic Church and the other churches went through regarding that is just that, you know, Jesus could have been buried 50 feet from there. Miles from, you know, 50 miles, you know, maybe 5.
Israel.
But it's, you know, Constantine's mother, Ellen, went through and said, you know, talk to her contacts there, and said, well, that must have been where that was. That's where that was, and that's where that was, and that's where that was. And they wouldn't do anything better or different, so that's what they.
Let it be, was it, let it be written, let it be said?
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah, like Pharaoh.
Why not? So I have to explain, Mike is an engineer, he's very detail oriented, very precision oriented, you have to kind of let that go. So, whether it's the exact place or not. And a lot of Israel is like West Texas, it's. Remember, 1980, very desert, very, you know, they've been that our kind of stuff. And the things in the Bible about more plants of wild and natural life, just maybe kind of under climate change. It used to be very bleak plants.
You find that more in both, we didn't get out there, but that doesn't take any, the scientific uncertainty doesn't take anything away from faith experience. And, you know, if you can, you know, deal with that cognitive dissonance, then it's, you know, wonderful. But
I wasted my my full ride scholarship to the University of San Diego on archaeology.
That certainly was good about it.
That'll be no good except to add interest in my life. But one of the things that I learned is there, and I know that it doesn't seem scientific, but for many, many other architectural monuments, things around the world, we've relied very heavily on it being passed down from generation. It's such a huge event, something earth-shattering happened at this place that it gets passed down from generation to generation over thousands of years. People are told this was the spot, this was the spot, and it doesn't vary. It doesn't vary very much. So something to consider is that we humans, we have a way of it. That's where grandma used to live. That's the house that I was born and raised in. We tell our grandkids, so the house is no longer there, now it's a target. The house that I lived in is little kid's parking lot. But I took my kids and I said, this is where I went to school, this is where I lived. And maybe it could get passed down if I that important. It could get passed down generation after generation of this spot. So was it the exact spot? But what does it mean on a deeper level? You alluded to it. Or you said the scientific.
the scientific uncertainty does not detract from the faith experience.
It's
So I think-
some
So that goes, I think, to your question, Are they more sacred? I mean, I didn't know sacredness is on a spectrum, but it is. Like, my husband and I went to Rome decades ago, and we visited the St. Peter's Basilica and the catacombs on the same day, which were magnificent all their own, because we saw the magnitude of the opulence of the basilica in contrast to the places where early Christians were literally hiding out, fearing for their lives to be able to worship Jesus. And it was just a wild experience, of which one of those was more sacred. I'd say for me, it's far more impactful to be going underground and walking by the remains of some of our very, very early church parents. And know what they went through to worship our Lord. And, you know, all that other stuff is fluff. I don't know, it was wild as well.
Well, I don't know how Rome was, but in Jerusalem, well, all over Jerusalem, some hundreds who was a native. There were tourist traps here, and people standing by. It's very holy sites wanting to sell you this and sell you this and sell you that. And the guy himself said, "Well, it's customary to leave an offering of money." It's like, where's that go? So to me, the commercialization aside, why are we here? I went through a lot to get there. I was over there working, and I had to leave drive to Houston, leave my son with my in-laws, fly to New York, fly to Greece, fly to Jerusalem, and it was a trek at the time. Goodness, I never came to like that. So
We went to St. Peter's, and you probably did this same thing too. We found our vision gift shop. You should have got $100 at their shop. But
something to.
you needed the t-shirt, is what you're selling.
There we go. You brought
I do want to mention I'm so impressed about Constantine's vision. He was a starter. Would he have not done what he did, right? Would it have happened? The granite illustrations of Christianity throughout the world, cathedrals, basilicas, it's amazing. But I just realized that he was sort of a starter. I have knowledge that he had, it's called from God. It says something, in his dream. And that is kind of the beginning point of this great representations of Christianity, because they are amazing.
How many times in history have we seen God use someone that kind of go? Cause things forward.
Yeah.
Spreads the word more.
And Paul.
Yeah, yes, exactly. They do.
People are called for it.
After viewing the video, what characteristics of Constantine's architectural influences do you see reflected in St. Luke's specifically, or more modern churches you visit?
It seems to me that St. Louis was designed to take advantage of lay and households. And I've been to at least one Catholic church that is more like that. Same. Just the one off of 2222. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Others like the one in downtown Austin, is the more rectangular. So I think maybe some of it is depending on just the architect, what time period it's being built, and how much they're conscious of this. To fill some of the church history need, whether it's I'm the architect, who is I designed it. And I think this comes from a veteran, it's not like before 6 years, and one of the library directors came and spoke to us, he said to us, every architect wants your library to be his monument. That's true of many other buildings that All that is, it's not gonna think it should be regardless of what the church, the building committee wants, or what the budget might be. It's not, I think it's just something.
In the video today, you saw many different churches and they had very similar plans, so. So you see any of those elements when you go up there?
Other than center aisle.
There's absolutely, they may be sort of not like, oh, this is that. In the sense that, one-to-one matches up with Constantine's architectural style. But we do have a gathering area where we walk in, we collect our thoughts a little bit, but we're also able to greet people. We call it the atrium, it's also been referred, it's usually referred to as the narthex in modern vernacular, we call it the lobby, because not everybody knows all these Episcopal terms.
Yeah.
And it can be very off-putting for people who are new to our faith tradition. Maybe in an narthex. There's that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go here, no. So, but we have spaces. And then we have this space that is the nave, where we gather, we usually call it sanctuary. I learned from GA 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was in a session that actually the sanctuary is what's beyond the rail for altars. That's considered the sanctuary, so we are in the nave when we're out in the use. So
the altar and then sanctuary.
where the altar is beyond the altar rail is up there.
Oh, that's the sanctuary.
That's considered the sanctuary space. And then the space between the narthex lobby atrium area. Where we gather, we sit in pews is considered the nave.
So in the Catholic Church, most of you must have, there's always an altar, which is the back wall of the church with plenty of images, of course, the center is used for Jesus Christ. So that is the altar, that wall. That's what we're calling Catholic school, universal prayer. So, but that's not what you're saying.
No, we do have an altar, it's in the sanctuary, it's the table.
The table.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's our altar.
But I will say, and I'll tell you more next week about this. Our architect was very intentional about how this building was done, the two architects that we used at St. Luke's were very intentional about the way they designed the space to reflect a lot of stuff. It's fascinating that in mind. Yeah, and
it just spreads out a little.
Yeah, it's the pathway for the procession, which contains a lot of the same characters that they refer to in this video about who are all the people who process, what are they bringing to the party.
Some of the things that struck me when I first walked in, church, I think we talked about it. When I was in Cairo, I was in Coptic church. And it looked like a ship, the timbers of a ship flipped upside down. It's like, hey, what can we use for a roof? Hey, let's use this old ship. Plopped it down. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
And when I walked in here, I'm like, this kind of looks the same. Doesn't look exactly like that, but it has that same vibe. I just wonder if that comes into the conversation basically.
I've heard that before. I'm going through a lot of our Bible materials to see what I can find out about.
It seems very essential.
It does, and it may be, I hope I find out that piece of it.
Well, thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you.
You're coming back. That's
Yeah.
very, very interesting. So, all right, I guess we'll get.
And I want to again commend Michael for all the work he put into this whole series. He watched every single video and put together discussion questions and helped our team get organized around this theme for the summer. And it was a lot of work, so thank you.
Thank you, work. I cooked dinner. You watched me.
So we're gonna find YouTube video. That's what we do. That's, so you are just my game. This is a. I mean, I know every great man is a praying woman.
In this case, it's behind an okay, and then it's a.
That's sweet. Thank you. Thanks for letting me in, by the way, I see. Tomatoes last week. It was the list. Well, I heard about it, I was relatively sure, so I figured out that time for church, but I'm still looking for some. Well, so it's a process. They don't grow up in 60, I'm not sure.